then you want us drug. You want us poor while you get more of everything. But you don't get to tell me what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell me what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so I don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. You want us tricked, you want us numb. You want us scared and you want us stung. You want us shot and you want us bought in every way. You want our minds, you want our time. You want us framed up in your crimes. I hope you know that it's time to go and we're taking names. 'Cause you don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. No, you don't get to tell us what is true. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 all your lies. La 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 all your lies. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. You don't get to tell us what to think and what to do. 'Cause you're just liars, cheats and crooks. Change the rules and you burn the books. And so we don't believe a single word you say. You're all liars, fakes and cons. Want you out and we want you gone. So don't believe this time you'll get away. 'Cause we see la 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 la.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Predicate. Today I have a special guest with me, Kelly Walker, and I have my producer, Kevin Isaac. We also invited David Summerall, but he's doing some traveling for the weekend, so he may pop in, but he may not. And I'm really excited, though, of having Kelly with me today because I've been watching his work, admiring what he's doing, admiring his advocacy for truth and justice. Kelly's background is that he is the founder, editor-in-chief of Freedom Talk. He's been a creative director and contributor to places like the Epic Times, Lindell TV, Washington Times, Gateway Pundit, Newsmax. He's also a co-founder and key advocate for Parents Demanding Justice, which has been some of his recent work. And he's had a seat at the table at the DOJ with this work. And he's brought them a dossier of stories of parents that were targeted and weaponized against through the whole COVID fiasco that we all went through when Merrick Garland wrote his letter that they were all parents attending school board meetings were domestic terrorists. And the funny thing is, I would say that that was Biden's DOJ, but now it's Trump's DOJ, and we're seeing some of the same type of behavior. So, Kelly, I don't know if you want to take it from there and just give people a little bit of your backstory or whatever you want to kick it off with.
Sure, Cindy, it's so great to see you. I love your intro. You've done your homework. Although I have to say I'm a little scared because, as we were talking about earlier, you are a double domestic terrorist, having been at the Capitol on January 6th and also being one of these domestic terrorist parents, which, by the way, we're going to go into that because I have been to the DOJ. I've talked to everybody, even gotten messages to President Donald Trump, because the Department of Justice under Todd Blanche, and we found out even oh gosh, Dan Bongino said, yeah, Todd Blanche runs the whole thing. They are still, as of January 23rd, referring to school parents as domestic terrorists.
That's Stanley, right? That was saying that. Is that?
This was Vance Day, who's senior counsel for Todd Blanche. We'll get into that, but I heard this for my own with my own ears, and I got a recording of it, and I'm very, very concerned. I've talked to people like Grant Stinchfield, Joe Hoff, the Gateway Pundit, Emerald Robinson,
Mhm.
gosh, a whole lot of people. Peter Tickton, who's a close friend of Donald Trump, going back to their days as teenagers, I think, as cadets.
Right.
And we're all very concerned because Todd Blanche is absolutely a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah, he's a gatekeeper. He's blocked everything.
And here's one simple way to put it. And here's, you can pull the clip here and do the little framing, whatever. Pull your reel from this. It's very, very simple. This is why Todd Blanche needs to be fired immediately because
Absolutely.
without Trump's knowledge, he unilaterally, secretly, covertly destroyed the weaponization working group, which was appointed by executive order. I think it's 14147 to evaluate the conduct and hold the federal government responsible for weaponizing against all of us, including
Right.
school parents, J6, everybody.
Yep.
So he got rid of that. President Trump didn't even know.
Right. It started with the move of Ed Martin, which was
Uh-huh.
kind of, just pushing him aside quietly. Yeah.
So, right. So I've talked to Ed Martin multiple times. I've met with him. I've been working on this for some time now. And what happened was Ed Martin was trying to help the parents. By the way, I've got all these documents, videos, news reports on realfreedomtalk.com, and some of it's on my homepage. A lot of it's on the Parents Demanding Justice page. But so Ed Martin was actually helping the parents. And on July 15th of last year, we held a press conference that I organized at the House Triangle. And a few parents came up along with the representatives of every major parenting group and some you've never heard of. The media, it was sponsored by Representatives Andy Ogles and Andy Biggs. And we went up to Capitol Hill to testify as to what had happened to these parents and the need to help them. Ed Martin was supposed to have gone to that. Someone on the inside told me the day of the event that Ed Martin was prevented by going by Todd Blanche. I didn't even know who Todd Blanche was. And I said, well, I guess I'll go have to talk to this Todd Blanche fella.
Good.
That's how we are as Americans. Like they
Right.
think they own us. They think, it's a privilege to speak to them. I think it's a privilege for them to speak with us, but that's besides the point.
But they don't listen to us.
No, they don't. They don't. And they want to suppress us.
You. Yeah.
So I started to get this idea that maybe this Todd Blanche guy is not on our side because Ed Martin was the director of the weaponization working group, and it was his job to be there. I mean, you're talking about testifying before Congress, right?
Right.
So in the wake of that, we got eventually shifted over to this guy named Vance Day, and I thought, well, who's this guy? I had heard that he was a retired judge from Oregon, and had some nebulous role in the DOJ. But I thought, well, this is strange. And he told us that we were supposedly going to have a hearing with Pam Bondi, so that they said you can bring 2 or 3 parents, and you and Sam Sorbo as representatives of Parents Demanding Justice Alliance can come, and everybody will come talk to Pam Bondi, and if she becomes unavailable, there's some emergency or something, you'll talk to Todd Blanche. And that was supposed to be, I want to say it was like mid-October, maybe October 16th. Then suddenly that was canceled. And I asked this Vance Day guy, well, what happened? Well, it's, the government shut down. We just don't have the time, and so on and so forth. He never made an effort to reschedule it. I was in Washington, D.C. on October 7th when Pam Bondi testified before the Senate, claiming that the targeting parents issue had been resolved and taken care of.
Right.
And I'm sitting there saying, what the hell is she talking about? You just blocked all of it.
Yeah.
And I thought either this lady doesn't know what's going on or something more nefarious is happening here. And they continued to stall. And to his credit, Senator Josh Hawley later in the meeting said, look, this hasn't been resolved for the parents. they're in dire straits. They can't afford legal fees. They don't know how to get their way out of this. This has to be taken care of. And Josh Hawley spoke out boldly on it. And I've talked to Senator Hawley. I have his number now, but like as happens so much in Washington D.C., eventually you stop hearing back from people, whether they're too busy or it's all about sound bites, but no action. You can make that determination yourself. But then we continued talking to Ed Martin, and I was recording those meetings for my notes
I watched
because I
that.
couldn't write fast enough. But at some point, I decided I need to make these public. Well, after all this work and talking to this Vance Day guy and trying to help parents, nothing was happening. Of course, Harmeet Dillon and Pam Bondi got on and took victory laps. Oh, we've taken care of this. We're so dedicated to these parents. And I'm like, but nothing's happening. They keep kicking the can down the road, and parents were getting very, very frustrated. We've had two parents, and you know this from the J6 story, how this
It's the
works.
same thing going on
Yeah,
JC.
two parents committed suicide out of hopelessness because when the federal government weaponizes against you, I can tell you from experience because we've lost our home, our savings, everything. We drive a beat up minivan, which makes me laugh because somebody recently accused me of being a paid operative of Flynn or somebody else. And I'm like, please pay me. Please pay me. I really need a new car, one that's dependable. So anyway, nothing was happening and everybody's getting frustrated. And one parent in particular who went on with Emerald Robinson, his name is Chad Williams. He was a business lawyer. He came to this hearing on the 15th to testify. Brave move on his part in July, especially since it was hotter than Hades there and we're sitting there in suits. But he went back home and received retaliation for having gone to D.C. They tried to get him disbarred. You'd have to read about his story. But he was getting particularly peeved because he went to the trouble of going through all the hoops and filing all the paperwork. He's a lawyer. He did it right. And they just put him off and put him off and put him off and
then
denied him
still
due process.
target you.
What's that?
And then still target.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So so parents across the country were reporting to me and Sam that they're still being targeted, still being persecuted. Not only the people who were persecuted before, but new ones like Jeremy Klepper in Florida, I believe it was Gainesville. He got up and spoke out against this school board person who had said basically Hulk Hogan deserved to die because he was a Trump supporter. And they didn't like what he was saying, so they called in the police to escort him out. And another lady from Florida whose son was ostracized in class because they knew his mother was a Trump supporter, called a Nazi, and just horrible, horrible things that are happening to people.
Oh, yeah. And with the school boards, I sat on a school board before, and they train you not to communicate with the parents, not to disclose anything in public session. You go into non-public, and even non-public, they don't record. Only what they record is if they vote. What
Yeah.
they're saying, they don't record. I mean, it's such games.
I'd like to sit on some school boards, all 240 pounds of me.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I
Yes,
joined the
just.
school board was because I hated the principal, and I figured I'll be her boss for a while.
Yeah, seriously. I have to be careful what I say because I'm 6'4" and 240 pounds. Jeremy Klepper even larger, and he's really funny because he people would go after me and say, "You're body shaming me because I'm a big man," It's like, body shaming.
I'll tell
So
you, you and David, both big guys.
yeah, David and I are about the same height. So
Yeah.
so all this is happening. They managed to tell us they didn't have time. Meanwhile, the Senate, as part of the deal to reopen the government on the budget deal, quietly slipped in this provision whereby any senators who were affected by Arctic frost, they had their phones tapped or whatever, could sue for a minimum of $500,000 per incident. So if Lindsey Graham got his phone tapped 10 times, do the math. At
Wow.
the minimum of $500,000 each time. And they voted, it's called self-dealing. They self-dealt them a suspension of immunity by the federal government, which means that Lindsey Graham could go in and sue the federal government. They can't claim immunity, and he gets rich off of it.
Yeah.
As I heard about this happening, because I have a lot of inside sources, I texted Representative Eli Crane from Arizona, one of the few good ones in the House, and I said, "Hey, this is a breach of the 14th Amendment. This is, you know, self-dealing and favoritism." And he said, "I know we're already talking to Speaker Johnson about it." So get this, Cindy, the House voted on that part of it to repeal it because it did. I think it did go through with the budget. They voted to repeal it. Every single member of the House, Democrat, Republican, otherwise, voted against it. Unanimous vote. When does that ever happen on this planet?
Right.
Like,
Wow.
and somehow John Thune and Lindsey Graham got it through anyway.
How do they do that?
Well, after that happened, they killed it. They killed it. You know, it went from the House and they killed it. And so I called up Mike Lindell and I said, "Mike, this is really corrupt. This is really bad." And Mike said, "Yeah, I know. I've talked to President Trump about it. We all kind of know how Lindsey Graham is, but I think it's actually good news, Kelly, because that $500,000 per incident, it kind of sets the bar. And Lindsey Graham has said he's gonna open it up to other people. So Mike, being Mike, always so positive and optimistic. He framed it like, well, they kind of did a beachhead there for all of us, and now we can all know it sets a precedent. Well, that hasn't happened because nobody else is included in that. Meanwhile, also when they didn't have time to help the parents who came to them in desperation, they managed to pardon George Santos. They
Right.
got a pardon through for George Santos. So what I was seeing was the elites get full service. The elites get off the hook.
House. Yeah.
Right now, I know Steve Bannon. I talked to him. I like him personally. I'm not going to comment on what he did or didn't do. That's not my job. But suddenly now the Supreme Court is taking up for Steve Bannon, while the rest of us are just SOL, I guess.
Flapping in the wind. Yeah.
Yeah, so I wrote this article on, and you can find it on realfreedomtalk.com. I'm going to republish it because it's been a little while. I think I actually put it in one of the issues of Freedom Talk magazine, and it was, "Is justice only for the well-connected?" And it seems to be so.
It does. Just my experience, absolutely. And I know on the J6 side of things, it's the same. You had Ed taking input from others in the DOJ, and they were giving him J6 stories of, horrendous experiences in the court system, DOJ, FBI, all of that. They were told to stop
Yeah,
writing these reports.
yeah,
So yet they're saying, "Oh, we're taking information and all this stuff." No, they're not at
yeah,
all.
yeah.
I just
No, no,
wanted,
not at all. I keep having this thing pop up here.
I
The
just
chat.
wanted to interject real quick.
Oh yeah, please do.
We have a clip of one of these. It was from Lindell TV where you released some of the audio recordings from your meetings.
Oh yeah, yeah. Go
If
ahead.
you'd like me to play that.
Sure.
All right.
I think these politics are easy because who's going to believe a school mom is a terrorist? I mean, honestly.
Well, and I agree with you on that. When you put stuff out into the biosphere of the media that says, you better do something by January 15th or else, my response is somebody who was a journalist and has a master's degree in terrorism. So my response, as well as the whole DOJ, was, we don't negotiate with terrorists. Do not threaten us.
Where was the threat?
Unbelievable, Kelly.
So a little background on that. Is that just amazing? So a little background on that was we had been communicating with DOJ. Sam and I put together a dossier of targeted parents that we submitted to DOJ. It went to the White House. It's on realfreedomtalk.com. You can find it there. We talked with Harmeet Dillon. We talked with, we went into the West Wing and talked to Vince Haley, who's the domestic policy advisor. For Pete's sake, Roger Stone and Peter Tickton both went in to talk to President Trump personally about this and advocate for the parents. And everybody said, like John Solomon, every show we've been on, and it's many shows, they've said, hey, this is a slam dunk for President Trump. I mean, are you kidding? Who's going to believe parents are domestic terrorists? And yet nothing was happening, and we're stymied. Like, why isn't this happening? I drafted an EO, a very reasonable EO, to help the parents. I was told by this Vance Day guy that supposedly they were working on having Pam. I've got a sneeze coming here. I'll try. That's on it.
Look at the light.
Excuse me. Now you have COVID. Okay.
Get your mask.
I just. Where was I? Where am
You
I?
went to the meeting.
I'm getting older. Where am I? I'm Joe Biden. No. Anyway, so I was told we were going to get this apology statement from Pam Bondi. So I actually drafted one up, and I said, here's a starting place, to help her because she probably needs the details. So we've done all of these things. We've pulled all the information together. That same July 15th trip, we were driving back home, and America First Legal, which is one of these nonprofit law firms, produced, and we're on our way home, and I see this. They produced a smoking gun report on the whole thing, on the whole Merrick Garland targeting of school parents. I mean, every single thread is there. They're guilty as hell. We have the emails, we have the messages. It's all there. I mean, this is like, it's a slam dunk in
What's
legally too.
interesting, Kelly, about that is I truly believe that I was targeted because of going to the school board meeting, because they came at me right after January 6th. Then they laid off. They actually closed the case on me.
Yeah.
And then I went to the school board meeting and boom, they're back. I can't get my DOJ file. I can't get my FBI file. And I bet you if I did, it would prove that.
Yeah. So yeah. And you, by the way, everybody, your very own Cindy Young is in the dossier, adding to her repertoire, to add to her portfolio. Well, I don't mean to brag, but I am in the PDJA dossier, one of the featured parents.
Yeah.
But so all this is happening. People are people are being persecuted worse than ever out here. What the hell, Pam Bondi? But we didn't have a bad attitude. We're still like, we're trying to be cooperative. We're trying to be patient. We don't want to piss anybody off. We don't step on toes. You know how it is.
Yep. Can't talk. You've got to be gentle with them.
But at some point, Chad Williams just started going ballistic. I didn't necessarily like his approach. I don't blame him for it at all because his family's on the line, his job's on the line. Literally, school district pressured his law firm to fire him. Wow. He's going through it. This is traumatic stuff. Yeah. But he started insulting people and saying, why do we even pay you tax dollars, stuff like that. Something we had tried to avoid because we wanted to try to, and our approach was always, let's collaborate. We'll help you. If you're shorthanded, we'll help. Put me in, coach. I'll help.
Yeah.
And so he created quite a stir. And like I said, it wasn't my approach, but I also had a lot of understanding for that. And I recognized he's having a lot of anxiety. There's trauma involved in this. And I don't know if the American people realize,
PTSD.
yes, it was bad for J6. It was also bad for school parents. And I'd say the extreme suffering of J6, few things can compare with that, but there's sort of this Venn diagram where they meet in the middle where I was one of the most egregiously treated, and it was severe. Yeah. It's they
lost everything.
Yeah, we lost everything. And you feel like we eventually ended up moving to Tennessee. We had to flee because they went after our kids and everything. And for months, if somebody would roll by now we're renting because our home's gone. Somebody rolls up to the front, maybe it's just an Amazon driver. My wife has a panic attack because is it somebody else delivering us a summons or is it somebody coming to arrest you? Garrett O'Boyle, one of the FBI whistleblowers, he served tours of duty in Afghanistan and Iraq, I believe. Yeah. And he said, I've seen things you can't imagine. He said, but being targeted by your own government is worse. It's worse.
Yeah.
Because there's nowhere to hide. They'll go after you in your home. They'll go after your kids, everything. Yeah. So by this point, with Chad getting really upset, I finally, I write a lot, I speak a lot, I go on a lot of shows, I'm very outspoken. I wrote this article, and by the way, please subscribe to Freedom Talk
and
Magazine.
Links are all below, everybody, all of the videos that we're referring to, and Kelly's.
Yeah. And Freedom Talk Magazine is free, but we also have a paid version. It's just $5 a month or $50 a year. We need all the support we can get, and I've just been working on a letter for patrons because, the DOJ is trying to go after these paid influencers. I'm not a paid influencer. I work for a living, and donations help. I'll just say that, get gas to get down the road and such. But I digress often, so let me get back to the story. So I wrote this article, and I set a deadline for justice January 15th. And in the article, I said, we have shown extreme patience and forbearance. We've done everything we can to help, and we've been stalled. We've been lied to. We did not get the hearing we were promised. And I tried to put it as diplomatically as I could. And I said, we've tried to understand, the staffing issues and everything else. I said, but because of the pressure we're getting from parents, we don't want to see parents going to Washington, D.C. and picketing or launching lawsuits. So if Parents Demanding Justice Alliance doesn't see something substantial by January 15th, we're going to have to go to the media and report that nothing's happened. Now tell me where the threat is in that, other than
There isn't.
we're going to exercise our free speech.
Truth is a threat to them. They don't like it.
So I was going to Washington, D.C. in January for an event with Seth Gruber's White Rose Resistance, and I scheduled some other things. And so I reached out to this Vance Day guy at DOJ. By this time, I had found out he's senior counsel for Todd Blanche.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he's really high up,
Yeah.
And I said, hey, I would like to talk to you. And some of us on the Parents Demanding Justice Alliance page had been discussing, and there, among three of us, one said, I don't trust him at all. I think he's against us. Another one said, I think he's trying to work for us. And I said, I really kind of lean toward he's not with us, but if I can meet with him in person, I'll know for sure.
Yep.
So I did. I said, hey, can I meet with you? I'm going to be in town. He said, yeah, why don't you stop by on your way out? So it was January 23rd. One of the other PDJA members was going to go with me, but had a conflict, which I'm actually glad that happened. So I went alone into the belly of the beast. It wasn't my first time inside the DOJ. I'd gone previously twice to meet with Ed Martin in his office. And I'm sitting up there in this office, and the guy seems nice enough and everything. But, tigers smile before they're going to try to devour you.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to this guy, and I had thought in my car, I have this little recorder here. I thought, should I bring that up? I thought, no, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt. I put it down in the car, right?
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not gonna record this because I'm not going up here to entrap somebody. I'm going up here to get help for the parents. And call that naive. I just I'm not doing this to hurt people. I'm doing this to help people.
Right. Right. I get it.
Yeah. So I go up there and we're talking, and one of his earliest comments was, you got to understand how the DOJ works, Kelly. Pam Bondi's like the chair of the board of directors. She's not aware of what goes on inside of here. And I thought, oh my gosh. And I'm like fumbling for my phone. I got to start recording this.
She's
He
never
said,
there.
Todd Blanche is like the CEO, and the rest of us run the organization, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going like, that's exactly what people have been saying and fearing. Like, it's the deep state, because in my mind, the person representing the elected administration is the one who's supposed to be in charge. And since then, people have said, oh, well, yeah, Todd Blanche is like the administrator. Pam Bondi has to do this high level stuff. That wasn't what he was saying. He was in so many words saying she's just a figurehead. Todd Blanche really runs this place. Okay.
Yep.
And then we're talking some more, and it's starting to get a little tense, but we're still smiling, and you can almost see the beads of sweat going down. Hey, and I'm just like, I don't want to let this get heated, because then this dial is going to shut down. I have this one chance. We limped our way up there in our old minivan. Raised money for gas, all the rest, new tires. And I'm just thinking, like, what do I do here? So I was recording it, and at one point, he acted as if he didn't know anything about my case. Oh, I don't know these things. Somebody's got to tell me these things. I said, we have the dossier.
Right.
We have all these reports. We have the website. And then I said, and we gave our case information to Ed Martin, and he got the strangest look on his face, almost like like you had mentioned his mother-in-law or something, and not in a good way.
Yeah.
And he says, well, nobody knows this yet, but Ed Martin is no longer with the weaponization working group. And I was shocked. I
Yeah.
think I might have even lost that smile for a minute. Like,
What?
what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just thought, what the heck? And no, he said, nobody knows about this yet. So I thought immediately, okay, he's just gotten rid of the weaponization working group chair
Mm-hmm.
or director
Mm-hmm.
without anybody's permission, appointed by executive order with the force of law. And I said, oh, well, what's he doing? Oh, I don't know. He's a few little pardon things over here. I found out later through some sources that they had tried to get Ed Martin to resign and he refused.
Yep. They did
Okay,
that
but
with people I know too.
I was listening to a previous recording when I was meeting with Ed Martin, and I realized I had something on there that has to do with the fact, and Joe Hoft, Christine Bish, who's now running for Congress, they all know about this. Christine Bish brought some information forward about Adam Schiff and his real estate dealings.
Yep.
She brought it to Ed Martin. Ed Martin started investigating it. Well, guess what happened? Todd Blanche didn't start investigating Adam Schiff. He started investigating Ed Martin. This
Yep.
is a matter of record. This actually happened,
Yep.
okay? And then suddenly Ed Martin's gone from the weaponization working group because I had met with Ed in between these things. So I know the timing, the time frame of all of this.
Yep.
And they're trying to get rid of Ed Martin. It's a cover up.
Oh, it is.
Why the
I
hell
think-
would you go after Ed Martin for collecting evidence? And Christine Bish, you know, she you can read in the Gateway Pundit about this. She talked to Joe Hoft. Okay, so I'm like, this is dirty as hell.
Yep.
And then I like Ed Martin, and
I do
he was
too.
actually
I
trying
do
to help the parents.
Yep.
But here's one place where
He's a good guy, but they've really.
I want to say humbly, I'm not in a place to judge it, but instead of coming out with this and saying this is what happened, he went ahead and posed in that picture with Todd Blanche as like we're the best buddies ever.
And I think he just put something out that he's a good guy, that he supports him, and I'm like,
He folded, and he knows.
Yeah,
And I've been very
yeah.
because I have his number. I've been very frank with him about this. I said
Yeah.
you gotta step up and do the right thing. But here's what happens: like I got to spend 3 hours in person with James O'Keefe in Nashville a couple months ago, and I was talking to him about this. And he had, by the way, just done a sting on an FBI agent where they said the whole plan of the DOJ is to run out the clock on President Trump, to make him think we're doing the things that he wants,
and do
but,
nothing.
but stall
Yep.
and do nothing because they want to come back after us all again,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So James said to me, what do you make of this? I said, that squares with what I'm seeing at DOJ because they're trying to play out the clock. Vance Day had been playing this puff piece, this video with all the talking heads, Kash Patel, you know, good mixture of people that I like, people that I think are not with us. But the whole gist of it was, look at how great we are, look at how great this administration is, look at all the good we're doing. And I'm sitting there like, gag me with a spoon, you know, to harken back to the 80s. And I'm just thinking, what I'm watching here is propaganda designed to fool the American public, quite possibly President Trump. And I would say this without trying to slight Ed Martin. I just want to say a lot of the rest of us gave up our jobs for this country to blow the whistle. We suffered greatly. And I'll say this, again, not having all the information of why he made the decisions he made, but I'm very disappointed that he's going along to get along because
Yeah.
particularly if your job is to represent the American people, particularly if you took an oath to the Constitution, you have a duty to put principle before paycheck. You really do.
President Trump trusted him in that position too.
But here's the rationalization that people have. Alexander Solzhenitsyn, you know, author of the Gulag Archipelago, said that every man has handy a dozen little reasons why he's right not to sacrifice himself. So what people think, and this happens with Christians, maybe more than anybody, well, God's in charge, so he'll handle it. I guess I could disclose this but I'd lose my job, and then who would fight for people? I can't tell you how many law enforcement officers have given me a variation of that.
Yes.
The guy who arrested me on September 15th of 2020 for getting up and speaking,
Yeah.
if you've seen the video on that, it's shocking. I get back in the booking room and he says, "Oh, I'm in so much trouble with my wife because we're conservatives, we're patriots." And I said, "Then why did you do that?"
Did you do it?
He said, "Oh, I didn't want to lose my
Because-
job. I didn't want to lose my job." And I said, "Your job is to." I'm sitting there with my hands cuffed behind my back, never even been arrested ever.
Yep.
And I said, "Your job is to protect people like me from people like that." So the rationalization is, well, if I just keep quiet and follow orders, God's in charge anyway, and I'll be here to.
It's
But,
this
but they're not
whole-
going to do anything. So why are you there? They're not going to speak out. We saw during COVID, we saw some sheriffs and others who stood up and said, "No, I'm not going to do that."
right.
Okay, so again, I don't want to. I don't want to slam Ed Martin. I like the guy. He respects what I've done. He sees that I've been very, very organized. But
Yeah.
I think it does us all a disservice when you slip into that mentality and say, "Well, I can go ahead and bow the knee to bail, but my heart's not really in it."
No.
Okay?
Yeah.
And we have
Because-
an opportunity here with this change up. I don't think Ed's the guy. I don't think Carmen Billings. I don't like Blanche at all. We need somebody new. We need you, Kelly.
Sure.
Just to be fair,
Because that would happen. That would happen.
just to be fair, is that's actually a good recommendation because Cindy and I have talked about this, and just an example of you're doing a job. You're supposed to be protecting Americans, but yet you go after the very American. Was David Summerall recently? He came on right after the event.
FBI.
FBI agent showed up at his house.
Yeah.
He was in the backyard, in his garden, his sacred space where he connects to God.
Yeah.
And the guy couldn't get it through his head because he was hell bent on finding David to confront him. And then David asked him one simple question:
Yeah.
"Who asked you to be here?" "I don't know."
We're here to check a box.
Yeah.
Box.
No, they don't. The second arrest a year later for literally sitting in a school office meeting, I asked the officer the same thing. I have video on that. I said, "Why are you here? What's your probable cause?" "I don't know. They just sent me here." I said, "Then you can't arrest me because you don't have probable cause. You don't even know why you're here. You're just following orders." And boy, I'll give people a tongue lashing. I never go over the line because I want to respect the office. But finally, he just said, "Look, you're either going to sign this paper or I'm going to take you down to jail tonight." I thought, "Oh, really?" So much for due process.
Yeah.
Sign it under duress. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
But Dave Summerall and I are great friends, long-term friends. That guy he has done more for people than anybody I know, for J6, for school, for everybody, like out of his own pocket. And he doesn't announce that. "Sorry, David, I'm gonna out you here." The guy's incredibly generous. And what he's done is so damn frustrating because, first of all, you get the government resistance, you get the harassment from the corrupt feds, but then you have other people who are making a lot of money off of people's pain who are going to come in and take credit for things he did. I'll just leave it there.
I know who you're talking about.
Yes.
It can be various people. I don't look. I'm not in the middle of that, so I'm not necessarily going to take a position. I'll just stick to the one side and say David has not received the honor that's due him, and
Absolutely.
it's not why he's doing it, but
But
I
it
think-
doesn't help when they violate his Fourth Amendment because, first of all, the FBI agent did not have the right to go onto his property and seek him, but he did it.
Yep.
And that's what I think you've been trying to explain to people is they bent the law, the law that we believe in, and you're explaining the logic behind it because the logic behind it is, and I'm not going to say the source or the event exactly, but the phrase that was used in the DOJ against the person was, "I don't care. We're the government."
Yep.
I know that's exactly the attitude they take. I don't care. I don't care about the truth. I don't care about the law. I've seen that before too because after we moved from Tucson, we went to sell our house and it wouldn't sell. And we found out there's a lien on it. We had to pay a lawyer to even close our house, and we're just like we're living on fumes as it is,
Mhm.
fleeing from extreme persecution. So we hired this lawyer because they took $10,000 out of our home sale against the Arizona Homestead Act. You can have a legal judgment on you, a criminal judgment, anything, whatever it might be, unless you get over $250,000 in equity out of that home, and I think it's up to $350 now. They can't touch it. They went ahead and took it anyway. So we called the place, I forget what it was that collected it. We said, and the lawyer sent them a letter too saying, you're breaking the law by doing this. They said, we don't care.
Wow.
Because they knew we're going to pay more legal fees than we're going to get back because we're already like $4,000 or $5,000 into this to get $10,000 back. Thank God we were able to close our home. But then we had to live off of that until I could find something. And what a sense of mourning. Like,
And
everything you've worked your life for, you're just watching it dwindle, dwindle, dwindle. You've lost your home. You've lost everything. You've been stabbed in the back, even by people that were supposed to support you. And all of this is at the feet of the wicked Department of Injustice. And every single shred of evidence is there. And what they're doing right now is burying it. And if people can't understand that somebody who, without any public scrutiny or permission from the President of the United States, abolished the very institution established by executive order to evaluate the DOJ, to call them into question for this weaponization against the American people. If you can see that and still think Todd Blanche is on our side, you need to check into a mental hospital. This is Logic 101.
Exactly.
It's saying one thing and doing another thing. And look, this is no slight on Trump, but he doesn't have a real good record with
No.
AGs.
No.
No.
He's a human being. He will trust people
Yep.
that tell him what he wants to hear, and they will stab him in the back. Very, very good people who love Donald Trump, who are staunch, longtime allies, are trying to get his attention and say, this guy is going to be worse than Bill Barr.
Absolutely.
And he is going to go back after everybody. You think you're safe because you got a pardon for over J6?
Yep.
Well, of course, you still can't have firearms or get your record expunged. These people hate you.
They
They
hate
hate you.
They hate
Because I sat there across from a guy who's supposedly a Republican.
Yep.
And you heard it. He says, we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yep.
And I'm sitting there thinking, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you? You're doing the same thing that Merrick Garland did because we spoke up and said this is wrong. Merrick Garland worked overtime to get us labeled as terrorists, quite against the
He
law, by
did.
the way. And you're sitting here telling me this?
That deny that. They deny
And so
that.
I asked this guy, I'm not trying not to call people names, all right? I'm talking to this guy and he says, well, Kelly, what do you want? And this is the moment when we're still got the smiles, but the faces are getting red because we're getting frustrated. And he says, what do you want? I said, I just want my life back for me and my family and for all these other families who were wronged. He said, well, don't expect the DOJ to give that back to you. And I'm thinking, okay, you son of a bitch. Okay, I slipped.
Wow. Yeah.
You got pardoned because you were going to be sent to prison for refusing to do gay marriages and organs. You got a presidential pardon. You're sitting in this cushy seat, and you're telling me don't expect my life back?
Right.
Are you kidding me? I talk to people almost every day, like Michael Castellero. He's going to be sentenced next week and maybe go to prison and have the key thrown away, and his family's going to go into poverty. Peter Tickton and others are saying, look, this guy, he was railroaded.
Look
President
at
Trump was
Peter.
railroaded. Where is he? These
Yeah.
people need President Trump. These people need to be freed.
Yep.
And I go out there and I try to share this information, and people say, oh, you must be anti-Trump, blah, blah, blah. And they don't
No.
even think about it. They just automatically answer. And it's like, you don't understand. People like me who have risked everything to go in and see what's happening and confront these monsters, we're the most patriotic of all Americans. So don't call me anti-Trump.
No,
Don't
I
throw those
admire
stupid
everything
slurs
you
at me.
do, Kelly. I do, and I know that it's a lonely road. There's so many people that will say, "Go, go, go." Yeah, thank you. Speak up for me. But when they have to put their feet to the pavement and stand with you,
Well, I'll tell you, because in our coffee shop, we opened it up to overflowing for when police, fire, medical, everybody didn't want to be forced to take the jab. We had people out the doors, every cause you can imagine, the school parents, everything. I met David Summerall because this guy called me up and asked if we could do a baby shower for this Felicia Conold gal. Are you guys, oh, you're not frozen. You're just very still.
Yes.
And we did, okay? We helped thousands of people. When I was brought to trial for the egregious crime of sitting in a meeting, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we
Okay.
can.
6 people showed up to
Yeah.
the trial
Yeah.
to support me. 6 people out of thousands.
Yep.
Okay,
Exactly.
but we don't do it. We don't do it for praise or support. We do it. And here's something. I'm on a rant now. It's Friday. I get
That's
to
all right.
right.
I get David worked up too.
Yeah. I had somebody tell me recently, like, "Oh, Kelly, you should just read Psalm 91 and just leave it to the Lord and just step out of this. Stop going after the DOJ." And this is the attitude of the Israelites. Who went into the promised land? Caleb and Joshua. Because why? Because they said these giants, they think we're like grasshoppers before their sight. They had the same attitude David had. Who's this uncircumcised Philistine? And David ran out to meet him. And that's not violent, but it takes a lot of courage and a lot of bravery to do that. And so what people want to get away with in their comfy little pews is this passive piety, right?
Yes.
Oh, God's got everything under control. I can just sit back and pay my tithes and Romans 13 and all these misapplications of Scripture versus active obedience. Have you read the Bible? People have to show up.
We are
God doesn't
God's
do it all
hands,
for us.
We are his feet and we are his voice.
Okay, Matthew 25, the final verses of Matthew 25. When Christ returns for the great judgment, he's going to separate the sheep from the goats. He's not going to say, "Oh, thank you for dutifully paying your tithes and starting youth programs and blah, blah, blah." He's going to say, when I was in prison, did you visit me? When I was hungry, you didn't feed me. Naked, you didn't clothe me. And then when did I see you? Well, every time you didn't do it for the least of these, you didn't do it for me. And I've got people claiming to be Christians saying, just back off and God's got it.
And that's
Do you even understand what that book says?
that's interesting that you point that out. And I've been on several programs. I'll just say that, and people start that. And my first question is always, did God tell you to sit down, shut up, and life would be okay? No, he said you have to get out and work.
Yes.
You have to protect what I give you.
Right.
You got to protect your own life. So I'm like you. I'm stupefied
Well,
at how people misinterpret getting off their ass and doing something to help. But yet they want that reward. They want that sticker on their Instagram post or something.
It's absolutely absurd, and it's a complete cop-out. I'm good friends with Eric Metaxas. He's written about Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He loves Sophie Scholl. These are people who talked about having this comfortable little life and being self-protected versus going out and standing on the front lines and confronting evil. And if you're, look, I want to tell you this little story because, and I don't want to expose anybody, but we finally found a church where we felt pretty comfortable. The messages seemed pretty good.
Yeah.
When we first moved here, we didn't tell anybody about our story because we wanted to just take a break,
Again.
be nobodies, yeah. And we felt like, am I going to be extradited? What's going to happen? You're being hunted.
Yep.
Last thing you want to do is say, "Hi, everybody, here I am." But we finally started telling people, and the people were shocked. And a good friend of mine who I've known since college, like when we were 18, he said, "Oh, where we live, it's like the Shire." He said, because they didn't, because of the people governing this area, they didn't come down hard on the COVID stuff. You got to choose if you wore a mask or not. He said, people here just don't know. They don't know what you've been through, Kelly. But I finally confided in this pastor and this co-pastor. And I met with this co-pastor just after I had come back from going into the DOJ alone, which is very imposing. If you haven't been in that huge monolith,
I have been.
so dark, it's got demonic Art Deco art in it, very demonic. Okay,
Everything in DC is demonic.
I have the pictures. Okay, and I'm not like, oh, these streets shape an owl or something. I'm not. I don't get into that. It's just like you see this art and you're like, what the hell is that?
Right, right.
They figured it, they figuratively have Jesus in prison in there. By the way, that's another story. But where was I? See, I overtalked myself. I'm 56. I can claim a senior moment, I think.
So you
Okay, but so I come back from January 23rd.
yeah,
Very stressful situation, and because of all we'd been through, I'm like, I'm in that PTSD thing again, and it's scary. I come home, my wife's like, Kelly, what just happened there? This is the, are they going to come for us kind of thing. It's it's not totally irrational though, but when you see how what our government's done, right?
right, right.
You're not you're not
No, you're not crazy at
berries in
all.
a dust beam, right? So I come home, and I'm like, I really need some spiritual support because that was harrowing. I mean, there's just this palpable sense of spiritual warfare and being up against evil forces that's beyond the physical. I left there like, it feels menacing, okay?
Yeah,
I'm not a guy who wears religion on my sleeve. I'll just say that it feels spiritually dark and menacing.
yeah.
So I asked this co-pastor, I said, can we get together and talk? We went to a cigar lounge, had a cigar, spent 3 hours together. He listened. He prayed with me. I can't believe what I'm seeing and where I am, and I'm able to get messages to President Trump, and I don't even know how to make sense of this. I guess God's using me for something. And he says, stop saying I guess. Stop saying I guess. He said,
Yes.
you're unique. God's put you in a unique role. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to put a label on it. And I I cried a bit. I'm going to say, no, actually, no, I was chopping onions. That's what it was. My eyeballs were sweating. No, but it was very emotional and very touching.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
what you expect to have with a pastor. It
yeah.
was like this release of tension, right? And I just felt like this just renewed sense of purpose. Like everything I've suffered and been through means something.
Yes. And you are here for these times, Kelly. You are.
But the
I
story
believe
takes a
that.
turn, unfortunately, because I left there just so fortified, and I reached out to some friends, had some friends say, "Yeah, Kelly, this is you're being used," and I'm like, "Who am I? What do you mean?" And that was on a Friday. We go to church on Sunday, and the pastor gives one of the most bizarre sermons I've ever heard, and the gist of it was, you are supposed to submit to the government, pay your taxes, and be a good little boy.
Oh,
And
God.
it was bizarre because he's up on the stage
Yeah.
and he says, and this podium is mine. If I want to paint a different color, I can paint a different color. If I want to pick it up and throw it off the stage and break it into pieces, I can do that. I'm like, what?
Wow.
And I knew it was directed at me because I had confided in the co-pastor. And I was just like,
Oh,
okay, this has come from the pulpit, but this is demonic. I'm not saying he's possessed, but I'm saying this isn't a good message. This is not. And I'm just sitting there like, and my wife's like, Kelly, don't just sit still. But finally, he said, you don't have any freedom. And that was a little too much for me. I didn't yell. I didn't do anything. I just said, in this tone of voice, I said, yes, we do.
yes, you do.
And I sat for a little while longer. I went out to go to the bathroom. And when I came back, the service had ended. He slams open those doors to the sanctuary or whatever you call it. And he glared at me with this look of hatred. And I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And I went up to talk to him. I said, let's talk about this. He said, we're not doing this here. You're going to talk to the elders. Just like that. I'm like, okay. So I went back to my car and I'm sitting there like, well, I guess we're going to have a meeting sometime. Well, the co-pastor texts me. He says, well, do you want to come in and talk? So I find myself sitting in this room with 5 angry men all looking at me. The pastor claimed that I was hostile and was going to set me straight and tried to really push his will on me that you're supposed to just submit to the governing authorities. And one of the guys there had been to J6. And this is what gets really interesting because I don't like, I'm probably the wrong person to try to push around and indoctrinate. You're not going to get very far with that. And
Yeah.
I wasn't disrespectful. I wasn't aggressive or anything. I said I wasn't hostile. I'm passionate. Well, you spoke out in the middle of a service. I said, yeah, so does the guy in the back that comes in every 3 weeks and shouts hallelujah and amen and disturbs me.
Hmm.
I said, it wasn't that I spoke out, it was that you didn't like what I had to say.
Right. Right.
And it was interesting because the J6 guy was like, they're trying to, submit to the governing authorities. This is biblical. This is biblical. And I said, no, it's in the first century context because they had an emperor, they had a Roman Empire that if you stepped out of line, you'd lose your life. We live in a republic, a representative republic, and we are the government.
Right.
It's a government of, for, and by the people. Oh, that's not relevant. That's history. That's not theology. I said, okay, well, let's talk about Queen Esther. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about that Daniel. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And the J6 guy, he's like, well, I was at January 6th. You know about natural rights? I said, yeah, this is all about natural rights. I said, tell me something, so-and-so. When you were at the Capitol on January 6th, were you submitting to the governing authorities? Oh, well, I don't want to talk about it. I said, no, I think we should. Were you submitting to the governing authorities? And he pushed it off. But I could tell in his eyes, he's like, yeah, I kind of agree with him.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to submit to authority. And then I said, this blew me away. I said, okay, because I said, your co-pastor sat there and we talked for 3 hours and he said, Kelly, I think this is your calling, walk in it. He said, I would run from that as fast as possible. And I said, but wait a minute, this is spiritual abuse. Your co-pastor just said this to me. I thought it was a great moment. He said, well, he's just an employee. He's not one of the elders.
Okay.
I thought, this guy needs to, he should have got up and said, that's it, I resign. I mean, what is that?
So
What?
did you run from all of that, I hope?
Well, no, I stood my ground and I said,
Okay.
I said, look, I know the scriptures too.
Hmm.
And I said, I'm not claiming to be a prophet or anything like that. I wouldn't. Well, good. And he said, because I am a prophet. And I'm like, okay, what? Because you have a piece of paper? I said, I'm just saying that I understand what's going on because I've done the work. I've been in the middle, and we need to be prepared for this. And it was just the most bizarre experience. But there was something really funny that happened too. Because let me see if I can get this straight. I said about the governing authorities. I said what Jesus said there, and render to Caesar what is Caesar's. What was said there was in the context of the first century world, where they had a fully different type of government, right? Well, when we got around to like being quiet in church and all that stuff, I said, well, hey, the early church, the Bereans questions things. Paul interacted with the audience, blah, blah, blah. And the guy that had been to J6 said, well, that was the first century. I said, thank you for making my point for me. Because apparently context matters here, but not there.
Right.
And I wasn't going to say, look, I have a degree in theology. I've been involved in apologetics. I've written about things.
Yeah.
I know what I'm talking about. But I
Done your
didn't.
homework. Yeah.
I wasn't in a pissing match with the pastor, but he felt threatened. And I left there thinking, if you think I want to take over your church, you feel threatened by me? Not at all. That's the last thing I want. I grew up as a pastor's kid. I don't want that life.
Right.
It's a hard.
Yeah.
Well, if this helps you, Kelly, was when I was 11 years old, I
Yeah.
was actually kicked out of church because I asked a simple question. The pastor went out of this way because this was back in the 80s, 90s. You don't call on Sunday mornings. And if you're going to call on Sunday, period, usually it's prearranged because you never call on Sunday. Bright and early in the morning, I'm getting up. My mom's making me breakfast. And the phone rings. Well, as I said, back then you did not make a phone call. It was the pastor of the church letting my mom know that I was not allowed to come to church anymore. Well, when she asked, she said, what's the issue? She says, he being out of control, blah, blah, blah. Because I didn't know until years later because my parents didn't want to quelch my, uplifting in God, was the reason why my parents had left the church. Well, I had asked a simple question. I'm sure billions of kids throughout the centuries have asked this question, but I got kicked out of church for it. If Adam and Eve were the first man and woman, who did their kids marry? I got kicked out of church for that.
Oh, we need to talk about that. I wrote a whole book called Guidebook for a Son, where I have a whole chapter on origins that treats on those things. And I actually did a series, a video series called, oh gosh, Fathering in a World Gone Mad. Victor Marx is on that, Eric Metaxas, Sheriff Mark Lamb, Dave from His Glory, a bunch of people, a Roosevelt reenactment guy. It's a great series, but I talked about reconciling science and God, and Eric talked about scripture and science. They're really good discussions. And I think that's great because I have 5 kids, and it's great for kids to ask those questions. And they shouldn't be put off. They shouldn't give pat answers.
Right.
Augustine said something along the lines of, we put ourselves to shame if we speak in ignorance of subjects others knew well of, like science and math and things. If we speak foolishness about these things, how are they going to believe our holy scriptures? So,
Right.
unfortunately, sometimes people who maybe know their Bibles really well say things that are scientifically incoherent, and you got me off on a rabbit trail here, but
Well, yeah, and we're at
I
the,
mean to, but it was just interesting when you said that, because what the pastor explained to my mom is he felt uncomfortable with a child asking those questions in the Lord's presence. And I'm sitting there wondering, because even at 11 years old, I had a basic understanding of most of the Bible, and God invites question. He
yes,
wants
he does.
to ask.
Yes, he does. And a lot of it, part of my presentation, or one of those in the Parents Demanding, no, not Parents Demanding Justice Alliance, Fathering in a World Gone Mad, talked about the large numbers of youth who are leaving the church, and the number one reason they gave was that they don't have the answers.
right.
So
They
some of
aren't
these,
even
yeah,
allowed to ask the questions.
I've devoted a lot of time and effort to this. Cindy, I'll send you a link to some of those
Okay,
videos.
cool.
But,
And
the sad thing is that sometimes certain topics, you're not even allowed to discuss it because
Right.
it's so set in stone and rigid, and some of those doctrines are really, they weren't right to begin with.
Correct.
They just really weren't faithful to the text. But anyway, I think churches are great. I think
Yeah.
for social cohesion, for activities, my kids can play sports on the teams and everything else. But that isn't the church. The church is the ecclesia. It's the people. It's wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name. And furthermore, the church is what you do. If you are serving people, because we all have to go through this life, we all have to suffer wrongfully. We have to suffer for righteousness' sake. And we're supposed to be here to help each other through that. Because, one thing after that just incredibly intense weekend in DC in January that struck me like I've never understood it. And sometimes you don't understand things till you live them. But I had always heard people talk about being a witness for Jesus Christ. And it's like, okay, what does that mean? You go out on the street and evangelize? What does that mean? And what I realized is that I've spent the last 6 years fighting for justice for my family, for others. And by the way, that's the church when your true religion is helping the widows and fatherless in their time of trouble. But what I realized is I always kind of looked at, like, I want justice on this earth. I want my things back. I want my house back. I want my property back. And people would say, oh, well, you'll get it in the next life. It always seemed like a bit of a consolation to me. And it just hit me in a way that's hard to explain, that actually it's quite the reverse, because suffering for righteousness' sake means that you are a witness and you are going to testify in the greatest trial of the ages, which is the great white throne judgment. And believe me, I don't talk like this because
Yeah.
I haven't. I started since that time because it just became real to me. Like, you are going to serve as a witness, just like Jesus did. You can be innocent. None of us is as innocent as he was, but you can suffer wrongfully. And it's going to mean something in the cosmic battle between good and evil, and finally putting away evil, and finally.
Let's hope, huh? Let's pray for that.
It has to be. There's no other option. And I started doing this because people came to me sharing their stories, and it just broke me down. And I just said, I got to help these people. So either God exists or he doesn't. If he doesn't, then nobody has any hope of justice.
Right.
And life is
What is it?
a blur.
Yeah.
But it just struck me in a way it never has, because I've doubted too, but I just got this real sense of like our suffering means something. And yeah, I do want us to get suffering on this earth. I would have lost hope if I didn't think I would see the goodness of God in the land of the living, David said.
Mhm.
But if you're out there, well, if you're living, you're suffering. Princess Bride, life is pain, princess. You know.
Yeah.
But you can have some hope, and I'm not saying that in a hokey way. I'm just saying that in a way of like walking through it myself, and it's still
Yeah.
very, very difficult because I don't even know how we're going to pay the bills next month.
I know. And where are we with all this? I mean,
Yeah,
we're at the top of the hour, and we could probably go another hour, but
yeah. But
I,
I told you I can talk a lot.
I know, no, that's fine. But I just want to leave people with some hope or, you know, where we're at. I don't know where we're at right now. I really don't.
I don't think our hope is in any political figure.
No.
I appreciate and respect a lot Trump's done. He is a human being.
Yep.
I don't think it's in a party. I think our hope, look, Freedom Talk Magazine is the journal of truth and virtue.
Yeah.
Our hope is in the truth, and that truth is embodied in Jesus Christ. And here's what really, because I was an atheist for a while when I went off to college, even pastor's kid, I went into science, nothing made sense. But what really reeled me back was that we don't have a God who's distant from our suffering, or that's, pay to play, or follow Jesus and you're going to have wealth. We have a God who came down and entered into this willingly and suffered and died. And to me, among all the philosophies and religions that I could imagine, that's what pulled me back and said, this is the only real story that I've heard that makes sense.
Yep.
So that's where my hope is.
Yeah.
Live or die.
And that's what will save us and
Yeah.
each other. Yeah.
And that's been one of the things that I will say is whenever you were telling the story about having to stand before the elders and basically defend your life, and it's like, no, I I am of God. I was born of God, and I'm standing here before you because this other person who says that they are a representative of God is not displaying themselves in that manner. Why I am maintaining myself, why am I being challenged? And in that moment, it really is what you said earlier, Kelly. It is the spiritual battle. And I think that's the part that people don't understand right now is here on this earth.
Yeah.
This is the spiritual battle. We are literally face to face with the demons or whatever.
And we've got so much other stuff that's being put
And
into our culture to keep people quiet, keep people passive. There's the whole Q thing and trust the plan. Tomorrow's going to happen. Blah blah blah. It's
Well, I love this passage in Isaiah, and I forget where it says that I desire truth in the inward parts. There are a lot of people who are not true on the inside, but I love this scripture. For all these things my hand has made, all these things exist, says the Lord. But on this one will I look, on him who is poor and of a contrite spirit and trembles at my word. And there's a certain fear that we should have. Yes, we fear tyrants and civil governments. We don't want pain. We don't want the hassle. But ultimately, our fear should be that we're not going to stand up when God needs people to stand up.
yes. And that always takes me back to that moment of we're in this world, but we're not of this world. And I think people really get that confused in the simplest form. They think, oh, well, I'm above this, so I just, like you were pointing out with, wanting to basically set aside, let someone else do it. That's not what God asks of us. He asks us to stand in our place before Him. He is our guide, He is our guardian. And He never promised us simplicity. He never said that, oh, it's going to be good. You're just go out there, do this, do that. He wanted us to work at it because we have to be able to see this. This is all that God's asking of us. And when you were talking about being a witness, I remember when I met Cindy, I I was instantly drawn to her because I had been assisting people with their legal issues a few different states.
Well, plus she's kind of a supermodel.
Hey, she is. I mean, whenever I met her, she was assigned 2 public defenders for her J6 case from Washington, even though one of them couldn't practice in the state that she lives. But one of the first things, and it was more or less me just being a sounding board for it, because she already knew what she needed. And I kept telling her, I said, you may get mad at me, think that I'm being lopsided or I'm trying to back out of this, but I said, I think you really need to ask God. And God led her to the attorney she needed, came down to the wire, but in that, what she has done since. Now, for most people, I think they would attribute it that she's not gotten anywhere. I think what she's done has been more directed than what most people would assume, because she has fought unlike anyone I've ever met. Just put stuff on the record. Doesn't matter if she gets closure. She got it on the record so people can see. And that's part of being a witness, is you have to draw people's attention to what is in front of them. Because right now people are too comfortable in ascribing malice towards this person or that person, or being vindictive. And at the end of it, you stood up to defend yourself, your family, because the mask mandates. It didn't make sense. It's not backed by science, but they manipulated the science to try to convince you. But you knew better. And by the way, if everyone, down in the description is a hour-long YouTube video from Epoch Times in which Kelly and his co-founder for, I'm sorry, I'm going to lose the name.
Parents Demanding Justice Alliance. Yeah.
Parents Demanding Justice. It's really good. Kelly goes
really good one.
about his situation, how he got into this.
What I liked when I listened, because I listened to a couple of them, and I'm not sure if it was that one, but your wife had said, "Oh, they messed with the wrong person" or something to that effect. And that's exactly how it is with me, Kelly. Is they came at me, they ruined my life, they did me wrong, and I'm like a dog with a bone. I will, go to all ends of the earth.
But it's not me, because from the time my mother committed suicide when I was 10, I've really struggled with anxiety. I don't necessarily think I'm particularly brave, but I think it's God, and it's hard to explain. But like, even going into that big imposing DOJ, it just feels like there's an authority that goes with you.
Yeah.
And I don't like. I'm a big guy. I'm very strong. I've worked out for decades. I can handle myself, but none of that matters when you're up against a big behemoth like that. Like,
I know.
It has to be God. And I just often feel like I have so little to offer, but I'm just glad that I'm able to help some people, and that's the part you maybe don't see. And I want to share this. I know we're way over time, but and I'm not sharing this to aggrandize my family or anything, but I told you Felicia Conold, she had her baby shower at our coffee shop way back when, and by the way, the FBI were very obvious in the coffee shop. Idiots. But we had just moved back to Tennessee, and Andrea had been helping Felicia since that time with breast milk collection and different things, and kept in touch. And Andrea came to me and said, I just talked to Felicia, and she has to go to D.C. to report for sentencing. She has no place to take Henry. By this time, Henry, the little boy she was pregnant with, that baby shower was like, I think, 2.5. Her mother is adversarial and works for CPS. Her child could very well be taken into the system, and we know that
That's a thing too.
trafficking happens through CPS. That's so. So again, there have been a few times since we got attacked by the government where we had some extra money, but that wasn't one of them.
Well, didn't they even come to you with a gag order? They did, right? And money? And you
Oh
turned
yeah,
it
yeah.
down.
After that first arrest, they offered a $2 million settlement with a gag order, and we turned it down. My wife said that's not why we're doing this. So, but anyway, so We scraped together what we could, got a few private donations from people, and flew Andrea out from Tennessee to Tucson to sign power of attorney over Henry. Felicia drove out from Tucson, stopped in Tennessee, dropped off Henry, and went up to D.C. for sentencing. At first, Felicia was facing 25 years in prison. Then it was 4. So by the time we got Henry, we thought, well, I guess he's going to be living with our kids for 4 years. We thought we were past the toddler thing, but here we go. This kid's real. He's very sweet, but he's also very, very active and loud. So we took him in, and it ended up being, thank God, the judge took some mercy, I think, and it ended up being more like 3 months, which felt like 3 years, because having a toddler again in the midst, oh boy.
Oh, yeah, that's
But it was wonderful. It was good to do it. And so people would say, oh, bless your hearts. What a wonderful thing. You guys are saints. And my response is like, no, that's what we're supposed to be doing. If we call ourselves Christians, this should be everyday stuff.
Yep.
So I'm glad to have done it. And the one reason I shared this story, because you'll find it on Real Freedom Talk, is because I wanted people to see that and be inspired to do that for other people, because
Yes.
we need each other.
That's what we need to be doing.
We do. I taught in Sri Lanka for a year when I was 20, and the people are so poor there, they know they need each other. We have enough to where we don't always recognize that, but we do. Even if we have plenty materially, we need each other. We need those bonds. We need to put the phones down more and meet in person. So,
Heart of heart.
okay.
All right. Well, Kelly, it was fantastic, and I hope I can have you back again when we make some headway on this
Yeah.
mess that we're still dealing with. But
In the words of my favorite movie critic, that's all I got for today. Go away now.
Critical drinker, yes.
Yes.
all right. Well, thank
All right.
you for being
Well,
with us, and
Yeah, thanks for
have a
having me, you
great
guys.
weekend.
All right. Have a great weekend.